So this video is going to be a little different from the last one that I've made, as you can see from the title. If you saw my video on positive masculinity, you'll know that I was a fan of the show Avatar: The Last Airbender growing up, and I'm still a fan of it today, even 20 years later. It still holds up in my opinion. Now, fans of the show and this entire series also know that Netflix just came out with a live action remake of it. That's what this video is going to be. It's going to be a bit of a review. I'm going to talk about what I like and what I didn't like. And of course, if you haven't seen it yet, spoilers. All right, so for this review, I want to talk about what worked for me and what didn't work for me. I'm not gonna go into each episode and go through all the production schedules and all that other stuff. There are professional critics for that. I'm not a professional critic. I'm just a regular guy who's a fan of the series, and this is what I felt about it. All right, so let's get into what worked for me. The first thing that really worked for me was the set pieces. Like I felt really immersed into this world. Unlike the movie that shall not be named from 2010 by M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong, this movie felt like I can actually go to these places. I could actually go to the Fire Nation. I could actually go to Kyoshi Island. I could actually see the air temples and I could actually feel it. It felt full of life. And I really, really like that because for me to actually enjoy something, you have to have a suspension of disbelief, but you also have to have like a sense of I can probably go here. You know what I mean? Or if this was real life, this is probably where it would be. Stuff like that. And that's what I really liked about this. The set piece for the air temples, amazing. Love it. And I'm also gonna get into that in a little bit. Um I really like the those set pieces. The palace of the Fire Nation, really loved it. And I like how they expand on the story, and I'm gonna get into that in a little bit. All right. But that's number one. The set pieces really worked for me. The second thing that worked for me was the bending. I like the martial arts and I like the bending. There's some criticism I have, but we'll get into what didn't work. But as far as the bending goes, the fire bending was great. I always felt that that was gonna be the easier one to do because flamethrowers exist. So firebending was probably gonna be the easiest thing to do, and airbending as well. All you gotta do is have strings and wind and pull somebody. So airbending was gonna be easy. Firebending was gonna be easy. I want to see how they were gonna pull off earthbending and waterbending because those two are a little more difficult. You need more CGI for those. I do think they pulled it off. Um, I think they pulled it off better than what most people would have expected. They definitely pull it off better than the movie that shall not be named. And I did like it. There was some criticism I have of it, but we'll get into what I think didn't work in a bit. But waterbending for me, it looks smooth. It looked exactly how water would look. Earthbending for me also a little rough around the edges, but we'll get into that later. As far as their earthbending goes, it was probably my least favorite of how it looks. But I do think it still worked. They stuck the landing for what it was, you know what I mean? But there were some parts about it that I think didn't work, and I'm gonna get into that when we get into those. But as far as the martial arts and the bending, it worked for me. I give it a B. The other thing that worked for me was the casting. I enjoyed everyone. The person who played Aang, Katara, and Sokka. I'm sorry, I can't remember their names right now because I literally just came from finished watching it. Um, Especially the actor who played Zuko, A plus all around. The actor who played Iroh, I think he captured it, A plus all around. Ozai's character was amazing, and so was Azula's. But I'm gonna get into what I think didn't work with Azula in a bit. It's not the actor's fault. It's really the writer's fault, not the actor's fault. But I'm gonna get into why what I didn't like with them. But as far as the actual actors, them acting, great job. Now, the dialogue was a little clunky and it did seem a little awkward, but the reason why I could forgive it is because they're kids, they're kids. Like the person who played Aang was cast at 12 and he's 14 now. They're still children, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna expect every child actor to be Haley Joel Osment. You know what I mean? He's Haley what is a generational talent. I'm not expecting every child actor to be him. So like it was good, it was passable for what it was. And the actor who played Zuko, I could feel his intensity. The actor who played Aang, I could feel his jovialness, his sadness when he found out what happened, everything like that. So I like that all around. Even if it was a little stale, a little clunky, you know what I mean? I don't think that takes away from the fact that they actually did a passable job, and it was good for what it was. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna get better. Yeah, I'm pretty sure season two. The dialogue will get a lot more smoother. They'll work out the edges because they'll go back, take a look at this, and see what they can work out. So I'm not too worried about it. So the acting, I give it, maybe a C plus, probably a B minus. It's not bad, passable, not bad, not all the way great. You know what I'm saying? But again, children. Yeah, is I'm not gonna expect them to be, the Olsen twins. We just can't expect that. The last thing I want to get into and what worked for me was the story. Spoiler alert again. The thing that I noticed the most, or the thing I noticed first, was them fleshing out the beginning of Aang being in the air temple, his relationship with Gyatso, his relationship with all the other monks and everything like that. I really like that. We didn't get a lot of that in the cartoon. Now we got to see them, and especially in episode The Storm, it got fleshed out a bit of, his relationship with them. But this one really showed how Gyatso was a father figure to Aang, and I really like how they did that. That was incredible. I would also say the fleshing out of the characters of Ozai and Azula and Zuko. They really stretched out the tension in between them, basically gave more to the story. What I really liked about this one as well is that they showed, again, spoiler warning, they showed that not everyone in the Fire Nation actually agreed with the war. And that's something that I really want to see in the cartoon, because we saw in the episode in the cartoon when Aang went to the Fire Nation school that these kids were still like regular kids. They were just living in an oppressive society. So it wouldn't always just be the kids. It could always be, older people who know what's going on as well. And that's what they showed in this. Realistically, anytime there's a war within a nation, not everybody agrees. There is the rally around the flag effect. I'm sorry, I'm getting to my little politics game right now. There is something called the rally around the flag effect, but there are always going to be people who disagree with war. And because it's taking a darker turn in this more live action version, it made sense that they were going to show people who were against the war, and I really like that. That showed that really, to me, humanized the Fire Nation. When in the cartoon before, there was humanization going on, but it came a lot later. You know what I mean? It was the Fire Nation was shown to be an all-around baddie, and this showed the complexity of that. There's actually much more complexity to that. Like I said before, they fleshed out Ozai and Azula. I really liked how they set up that Ozai is kind of playing his kids against each other, like he's sadistic. You know what I mean? The actor who played Ozai did an amazing job, like I said before, and I really like how they did that, how they played them both against each other, and how Azula or how Ozai is kind of pressuring Azula to be perfect. You know what I mean? Now, in the cartoon, she was already perfect, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I like how they did this more realistically, how he pressured her to be that way in order to make her a perfect machine, and that sets up, her downfall later. That was great. My favorite one was King Boomy. Now, a lot of people are not gonna like this, or are gonna disagree with me, I should say. But King Boomy was actually my favorite change, or actually my favorite, stretching out of his story. The reason why that is because in the original series, King Boomy was still like, even though he was like more than 100 years old, he was still, like a kind of a jovial spirit, kind of a playful character. You see what I mean? But in this one, they showed the darker side of Boomy. We gotta understand, just like I said before, this is showing this is more of a darker version of Avatar. And in this one, we gotta remember, Boomy's been alive for 100 years. He's seen war. He's seen people die. You know what I mean? So realistically, he's gonna become jaded. And in this one, in the live action, they showed him that. They showed him that Boomy was actually very jaded. And a lot of people I know were criticized that, didn't like it. I actually liked it. I really like that part because even though this is a fantasy world, even in fantasy, some things are grounded in realism. You know what I mean? A person who lives for 100 years, seeing 100 years of war, is gonna become jaded. He's not gonna be jovial like we saw in the cartoon. You know what I mean? So the fact that they made him like that, I actually really liked it. You know what I mean? It showed that this is really an adult version of what we saw as kids. I really love that part. So on the story, on the fleshing out, at least the fleshing out the characters, I give that an A. I really like how they did that. All right, so let's get into what I think didn't work. Now, as I said before, I like the martial arts, but it was still a bit clunky. A little slow, I would say. What do I mean by that? Y'all have seen, Jet Li movies, Jackie Chan movies. You see how they move? I was expecting to see more of that, only with fire and earthbending. I do like the martial arts. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I did like the water, fire, and airbending because it all made sense. The earthbending, I think they need to work on the CGI a little bit more. Fans of earthbenders may not like what they did with the earthbending or how it looks. Now, it's passable, but I think it could be a lot better. The earthbending was a little clunky for my taste. It didn't flow the way earthbending flowed in the cartoon. Now, that could be forgiven because again, it's a cartoon. You could do a lot more with cartoons, but or actually with animation. You could do a lot more with animation. And for something that's gonna be more realistic, it's gonna be harder to make it flow like that. But that's the part that I think they need to work on a little bit more. The earthbending was a little clunky for me. It's passable, but I don't think fans of earthbenders will like it. Now, I'm a firebender and an airbender fan, so I was excited. But when I was looking at the earthbending, I was like, they may not be exciting for this. They may not be excited for that. It's passable, but I think it could be better. I think the martial arts, like I said, was a bit slow. I think they should have moved a lot more like how we see Jackie Chan and Jet Li move in their movies. The two fights that I will bring up, the two major ones that I was excited to see, and the animation was way superior, was Korra versus Paku, and I said Korra, I'm sorry. Katara versus Paku and Katara versus Zuko. Those were the fights that I really wanted to see, and it was a bit of a letdown. And the reason why that is, like I said, it was super clunky. The way that Paku moved in the animation, that little surfing on the ice and everything like that, and how Katara was surfing on the ice, all that good stuff, all that looked amazing. They can do that in the animation, but it just seemed so stiff. It didn't flow. It didn't flow like it did. Like in the animation, the way Paku was ice surfing, it was so smooth the way he did it. And this one was all like you feel me? It was so stiff and clunky. I was like, this could be so much better. Not only that, in those fights, there was a sense of scale, and in this one, it seems so in tight and enclosed. As didn't like that. The fight between Zuko and Katara as well, same problem. They were in a room instead of it being like at the Oasis. It felt so stiff and kind of slowed and enclosed. It didn't flow like I felt it should have flowed, and that could get a lot better. I feel, in my opinion, that could get a lot better. Which leads me into the story. What really didn't work for me in these stories? A lot of these story beats, they didn't really stick the landing for me. And not only that, they took out things that I felt were essential to the character. For example, another spoiler alert: the rivalry between Zuko and Zhao. It was not as pronounced in this one as it was in the animation. In the animation, the rivalry between Zuko and Zhao was very intense. You could tell these dudes did not like each other, and that Zhao wanted to kill Zuko. You can tell. They also had an Agni Kai. They will undermine each other. They will always try to get the better of each other, insult each other, all that, right? None of that was in the live action. Now, Zuko didn't like Zhao, and Zhao didn't like Zuko. You can tell within the animation, within the live action, that they didn't like each other. But their rivalry was not as intense, and it should have been, because at the end, when Zuko and Zhao fought for the last time, the payoff wasn't there. It didn't feel deserved. In the animation, in the original animation, the rivalry between Zuko and Zhao was so intense that at that last moment, the last time that they fought, you can tell that they really hated each other, and you were excited to see this last fight. And even then, at that last moment, you can see glimmers in Zuko's redemption because he tried to save Zhao. In this one, that payoff isn't there, because it's like, why do these guys dislike each other so much? There's no real reason for it. It's just that Zhao was a Lord Commander, Zuko was a prince. Zhao found out, and now he wants to go ahead, and there's no real payoff there. In the animation, they been didn't like each other, and Zuko and Zhao actually had a fire fade. In this one, they didn't have that. They had an Agni Kai. You know what I'm saying? I was kind of disappointed at that. I wanted that rivalry to be a lot more intense than it was, and it wasn't. And I was that part was a letdown for me. The other part of the story that was disappointing for me was they took away Aang's talent. And this is another spoiler alert, but this is what I mean. In the animation, Aang was an extremely talented bender. He was the youngest airbending master, but he also took to water bending pretty easily, and he learned earth and fire bending pretty easily. In this one, the entire point was to get to the north for him to learn waterbending, and he didn't learn waterbending. Like I said, the payoff isn't there. Literally for 7 episodes, he's trying to get to the north in order to prevent a tragedy and learn waterbending. He doesn't learn waterbending. And the thing is, what I really liked is that they let Katara be, talented, which is what I really liked. I like how they let Katara be talented, but one of her story arcs and Aang's story arcs was that Aang took to waterbending a lot easier than she did. And that kind of motivation and rivalry was there, and it gave her an arc to get over and get to the north and be better at her bending. And you can see her progressing as she gets to the north. We kind of see that here too. She progresses, and we still get the sexism story with Paku, but as again that fight, I didn't like it. And not only that, at the end there was a payoff because in the animation, Paku said, "I'm gonna take you on as my student." He let go of his sexism. That didn't happen here. No payoff. These story beats that I keep seeing, like there is no payoff. And when I get back to Aang, when I say they took away his talent, meaning that he actually did not practice waterbending at all. This entire season, Aang did not practice waterbending, not one iota. It's like, why? Are we gonna have a time skip? Well, we're gonna have to have one because the actors are gonna age. But in that time skip, is that when we're gonna see that he started practicing waterbending all of a sudden? And now that how did Katara already become a master? You know what I'm saying? Because in the animation, she had to train with Paku for weeks because the Fire Nation was coming. And in this one, she it's like 2 days they're there and the Fire Nation is there and she's a master. That doesn't make any sense. The story beat just not there. You know what I mean? It falls apart. The last thing that I would say from in my opinion, the most egregious part, why doesn't Azula have blue flames? Where are the blue flames for Azula? Oh my god. That's the part that I was looking forward to the most. Azula's blue flames are not there. They're not there. What happened to Azula's blue flames? I don't know if anybody is gonna agree with that, but that's the part I'm not gonna lie was most disappointing for me. That Azula's flames are not blue. Azula flames are supposed to be blue. It's supposed that she's supposed to be the prodigy, and it's not just the blue flames. It's the fact that Azula is a prodigy. She is not a spoiled brat who gets, manipulated by her father. Now, I like that they showed that I mean not Iroh, but that Ozai is a manipulator. I really like that fact. I love it, as a matter of fact. But they can still do that and show Azula to be a prodigy. And in this one, Azula is not a prodigy, you know, and she's supposed to be one. She's still sadistic and she still has, issues going on, but she's not a prodigy. And that's part of her story. Where are her blue flames? Where is her prodigy-ness? Where is that? These story beats did not work for me. They need to fix that within the next season. Otherwise, this is going to just be set up to be like a disappointing remake, to tell you the truth. These story beats are essential because they're important to these characters, and it's just not there. All right, so I'm gonna get out of here. So, but the last things I want to say is like, yes, there's a lot that works here, but there are also a lot that didn't work. I didn't get into the fleshing out of Sokka. I really like how they fleshed him out as well. Um, they had Jet in this one, and they had the Mechanist in this one as well. It's passable for what it was, but again, the story beat didn't work for me. Overall, this was not bad. It was passable, but it wasn't great. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably a 6.57. On a scale of A to F, it's a C plus. The highest you could probably give it is a B minus, but that's pushing it. So it could be better. That's what I said. It could be a lot better. These story beats just does not work for me, but a lot of it did work. This is not a terrible show. I was able to binge it in like a day and a half, so not terrible, but not all the way great either. Like I said, A to F, C plus, from a 1 to 10, 6.57, passable. But I think they can do better. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all. This is probably gonna be my longest video, but let me know what y'all think. And if you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, go ahead and follow me. I'm probably gonna be talking about it more because I want to talk about what I want to see in the new Avatar, so y'all follow me and I appreciate y'all being here. Thanks for watching. Peace.